This is the February 1st meeting of the Amherst Finance Committee, and I am chairing because Mary can't be here tonight. So we have the Public Works and the Enterprise sections to do tonight, and we have Guilford Mooring and, I'm sorry,
It's okay, Amy Rozecki, Assistant Superintendent.
Good
to see you guys.
So, do you know everybody? Or do you want to?
I would appreciate introductions.
Okay, so, Sharon, you want to start?
Sure. Sharon Povinelli.
Bernie Cubier.
Tim Neal.
Sonia Aldrich.
Janice Ratner.
Anurag Sharma.
Joe Jane.
Claire McGinnis.
Guilford Moore.
Thank you.
I've been wondering.
We have two for years.
Rozecki.
Oh yeah, thank you so much. Of course, I left it in my car again. What did I do
Could you
without
spell
you?
your name for him?
I'm sorry.
That's
I'm
okay.
a note taker, so.
No, it's, yeah, AMY, and then last name is RUSIECKI.
Thank you.
Yep.
And I want to thank Amherst Media before we start, so if I forget later. So we'll start, we'll just get right to it, I guess.
Can we start with transportation?
Oh, fun with me.
Then Claire can leave because I'm sick of the rest of it.
Okay. So we'll start with transportation, that's an enterprise fund, and.
Transportation is always.
Transportation, I'm very happy.
Somebody just gave me, thrill.
Is Randy part of DPW?
Yeah, she's assistant superintendent.
Claire already listened to me hack through one presentation today, so
He brought his own
she can
fluids
leave.
today.
So transportation is on page 166.
Transportation Enterprise Fund.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're your purple pages.
Yeah, for us.
What page?
166, begins with 166, and it's purple in your book.
Thank you. I call them purple too, somebody told me that.
Looks kind of
They're
loud.
lying.
They're lavender.
So, to summarize the Transportation Enterprise Fund presentation for you this year, I'll start with a success story. In November of 2017, we replaced the meters in the lots. The old meters had been failing for quite some time. The new meters went in, have been turned on, and they're quite well received. We also added for our users the ability to pay by a phone app, which is proving to be very, very popular. Already has a good chunk of revenue is coming in through that stream, which means the users find it highly acceptable. The fund itself, if you look at page 167, is essentially level funded between the 18 and the 19 recommended town manager budget. Expenses go up 2.2%. That's the number that you see, 18,303 there.
Expenses up 2%.
Expenses up 2%, but there's those indirect costs, which are our assessments from other places on the cherry sheet, actually go down. So the net to the fund is only $137. Those indirect costs come from things like registry motor vehicle fees and PVTA assessments. Last year we did balance the fund using some fund surplus, and we do not plan to do that in FY19. So it should be a good year. In fact, it should be a little bit of a recovery year for this enterprise fund. The increases that are in operating are in salary, health insurance costs, and retirement costs for the employees that work in this functional area, and therefore their expenses are charged to the enterprise fund. On page 169, you can see a summary of the revenues. we're really waiting to see what happens with the new rates and changes to the time of meter payment that were voted by the select board.
What were those?
Yes,
Can you-
What were those?
Again?
They took the very core of downtown, where parking is in the highest demand, and increased the pricing in a sort of a supply, price, demand equation to try to see if they could create more turnover on those most highly occupied spots that are right in the core geography of downtown.
It's right now what? It's about $1 an hour at this point.
It depends on where you park. So there's, the core is $1 an hour and the periphery is 50 cents an hour.
Okay. And that's after the change or before the change?
That's after the change. Prior to the change, it was uniformly priced.
Okay.
So this is a,
And when will we get those first figures coming?
I'm hoping to do an occupancy survey in February.
Okay.
And then again in April and June, and I mean, we need to really keep up with it to find out if that worked.
Yeah, cool, okay.
They also increased the time until 8.
We added some hours in some places and took them away in some others. So it's a pretty broad ranging structure of change in prices, rates, and times.
How do you calculate occupancy? Based on how many turnovers the meter?
No, well, because we could do that with the lots, because the reporting tools are so sophisticated, but fully half of the meter, the spaces out there are traditional old posts, so we walk around with a clipboard and count. There are 10 spaces on this section of street and 6 of them are occupied. And there are 6 spaces in this next section of street and 4 of them are occupied.
How often do you guys do that?
It'll be new to us. So far we've hired consultants to do it. So we just can't wait. We need more information than what we can afford to pay consultants to do. So we have to figure out how to do it on our own. So I'm working on that with the planning department and the parking enforcement officers.
And I've asked this before, but the permit parking is $25 a year. You raised all these other fees. So I was wondering why you keep that so low. If you look at the $25 per year and calculate it out like per day, it is way, way cheap. How come you don't touch those?
Because we want people to use that parking. That parking is in the periphery. It's even the wider periphery.
It's still awfully cheap.
It's awfully cheap. And that may be addressed in the next round of work by the Downtown Parking Working Group. But that's been the logic, is keep the periphery more affordable and get gradually more as expensive as you get right to the center.
You have more to present? Or
I think
should we
that's-
just get into questions?
I think that can probably be it. Oh, capital in the FY19 plan will be to reconstruct the Main Street lot here as North Common is reconstructed. We'd like to be able to reconstruct the Main Street lot as well. And also there's some money to paint the stairway structures in the Boltwood garage.
Any questions?
So you asked about the permanent parking, which was a question I would have asked as well. You know, it seems, I understand when people use it, but still, a modest increase probably wouldn't hurt, for one. If you're looking for people to count spaces, there's a flock of starving graduate students just down the road, so. Get some recruits from public policy, come on.
I'm on it. So for parking fines, registry fees, they really dropped by 11,000. Was there sort of any thoughts behind that?
Parking fine, where are your registry fees?
On what
At the
page?
top of
was it?
What are
169?
parking fine and parking fine registry fees? How are those numbers different?
Yeah, what's the difference between the parking fines and registry fees?
The parking fines includes the local fine that we add when someone doesn't pay their ticket on time.
Oh, okay.
The parking fine registry fee is an additional fine when someone doesn't pay their parking ticket for long enough for us to report it to the registry.
Oh, wow. So
So-
that dropped off.
So, well, what we really did is try to make the forecast match our actuals.
Okay.
That 56 number that's in the FY18 budget is really too high. So we're trying to adjust the 19 number to better match what
what it
is
was.
really happening.
I see, okay. And the parking meter fees, is that because of that increase from the new system that were the
Yes.
increase? Okay, cool.
Yep.
Oh, that's nice.
Interrupt?
So, as you know, parking is a pretty big issue in town. A lot of people have very strong opinions about parking in this town, and I'm sure you hear that all the time. And I'm wondering from, if a objective of the town is to make the downtown thriving and having people come in. Can we close that door?
The objective of the town is to make the downtown.
Thriving, to lively so that people are coming in.
Yeah.
So look, to me it seems like raising the cost of parking in downtown is sort of working cross purposes to that. The only town really close by which jumps in my mind is Northampton, and the parking over there is incredibly friendly to people coming into Northampton. The garage is free for the first hour, and then it's like 50 cents an hour. So I'm wondering what the town's overall philosophy is about parking. To me it seems like $1 an hour is a lot in the downtown. And the parking fines are pretty high too, like they're $15 for a ticket now, up from 10, which is like 50% jump. So what is the town's philosophy about parking, and what is, for example, the town hall's point of view about that, and what is BID's point of view about that?
Well, we are truly trying to manage what feels like a scarce resource. We have some study information that says it's really not as scarce as people think it is, but that is our philosophy, is to best manage a scarce resource. And to do that, we are experimenting with graduated pricing, which Northampton is also using. If you park right on the main street in Northampton, it is now $1.25 an hour. If you park further out of their core, it goes down, and if you're willing to work your way into the garage, as you say, you get the first hour for free. We don't have a garage. So that has to be our philosophy. It's been documented that free parking is always full. In a downtown with scarce resources, free parking is the first to fill up, and then it doesn't turn over. It fills up with your first employees to come to work that day, and it's filled all day long. So your guests and your patrons who are trying to get to those businesses can't find parking at all. That's what the research shows. But your feedback is sincere. I mean, there are plenty of people who think this is the wrong direction to go, because after all, Hadley does not have a scarcity of parking, and they offer it for free.
But UMass charges twice what we charge.
So really, when we went to these rates, we were well aware of the Northampton rates, and ours are continue to be lower, and I believe our ticket price is now the same as theirs. So and in Northampton, it very much matters. It is based on the geography, where you park is the rate you pay, determines the rate you pay. So they're using a similar system.
So, go ahead.
Go ahead. I have heard people make decisions if they want to go to a restaurant for lunch or something, they won't choose to come to Amherst, because why pay an extra $2 or whatever to park here, and so they'll go elsewhere.
Well, I was just going to say, I understand it's a scarce resource, and that argument is kind of a valid argument. People may agree or not agree with that. To me, it seems like, though, because I was talking to a local business person the other day, and there was, and I don't want to put anybody on the spot by kind of telling this person's name, but there was a lot of concern about parking in town, about how much of the enforcing costs in the town. How many enforcers do we have? we have 4 enforcers, right? How many do we have?
2.5.
2.5 enforcers. Okay.
Has that gone down at all? We used to be more.
We used to have 2 and 2.5.
You know, I noticed I park in town all the time, and I never pay my meter because I like getting tickets. I'm one of those weird people that actually like to pay because it's a good return on investment for the town, and I love this town. So I like the $10 tickets, but I've been parking.
It's not $10, it's 15.
Well, I know because I haven't gotten a ticket in like a year. Like I park now, and like I don't.
What's
pay
your license
anything.
plate number?
Oh, yeah. But like I never get tickets anymore. So maybe I park out in front of Burgers Bagels, run in there, have lunch with somebody, come out, never have a ticket anymore. I used to get them like that. And I said people used to be like, "Oh, you're an idiot for not." But I'm like, no, I go down to the temp, I'm gonna pay my thing. I feel good about it. But I figured, hey, maybe there was a drop in the people that are going around town and charging me for my car.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I know,
So,
strange word.
I thought this was going to be a short meeting.
do the local business people have a voice in parking rates?
Yes.
And what is their voice?
Well, you asked about the bid. There's a couple bid members on the downtown parking working group. There was one, now there's 2.
So what I don't really understand, there are some.
Well,
Let me just kind of make this observation. It is because parking is for a lot of people a real issue. From some of the people that I've talked to about. And then we have these 2 big buildings in downtown that don't have parking. We have a new building coming up which has very little parking, and we have one on Triangle Street which has no parking. So I don't really the parking philosophy is a little bit kind of confusing.
well, you're preaching to the choir for me. I'm also a business owner, as you know, downtown.
So I was waiting for you to say something about it.
Well, it's a complicated issue, and as Clara mentioned, there was a study done, and the findings are even complicated based on how the study was done. So I would say it's a work in progress that's still being worked on, and if I have my small business owner hat on, I would say I don't feel like we've reached the right mix, the right place. So that's my feeling on that. I like to hear, Joe, that you want to accumulate parking tickets.
I come from the Boston area, and
Yeah,
I think this
no.
place is paradise for parking.
Yeah.
Like
It
I drive
is.
around here, I can always find a parking space. The only time I can never find a parking space is when I'm coming to the finance committee meetings. It's like sometimes I have to drive around. Other than that, this place is paradise. I can always find a parking space, and I always slide right in, and it's just awesome. But I guess it's relative to where I used to live, which was a horror show, if you ask me. And they ticket your car in 5 minutes if you don't pay it. And it's $25 versus $15 here.
We can give you our tickets. We can just.
Well, it's a good way. It's a good it's a good ROI for the town,
on
isn't
his
it?
back
Parking
corner.
tickets. It's good ROI.
I mean, anecdotally, yes, I hear that all the time. I hear about people
Griping about parking. Yeah.
not being able to find a spot, and so they leave. So it's.
I'm sorry.
And it's the studies the occupancy studies that we have say that there is parking. It's a question of where is it located. It's further away than what the person stopping into your store or the person popping in burgers. It's not exactly where they want to park. And the people who took the last study in particular had a much bigger diameter of what they considered parking capacity for downtown than we've ever considered before.
It was the Nelson Nygaard.
The Nelson Nygaard study went as far away as Lincoln and Sunset
Mhm.
for when they analyzed parking capacity for the little core of downtown. That's and that's the people that are driving off because they can't find parking. There is parking. It's just not where they expected it to be.
So what is the core area? I'm sorry. What is the core? Where does the core go?
If you look at the North Pleasant, South Pleasant light with Amity and Main, they consider that to be the center of the core.
And then how far out does it go, the core?
The Nelson Nygaard study went all as far as Dickinson this way and as far as Lincoln and Sunset
And
that
then
way.
on East Pleasant
And then to Triangle
Triangle is core.
and Route 9.
Well, I think it's interesting because one of the first things they did in the first kind of parking get-together charrette was to give people maps of the town and say, what do you think is the core of the downtown? And that was kind of, people had different ideas of that. It's not as clear cut as Northampton. I think the perception of where you're going relative to where you can park is, I think there's the disconnect. And in Northampton, it's very clear. There's a garage right in the core, and if you don't find a spot on the way to the garage, you know that you're going to have a spot in the garage, and it's a conceptual thing that Amherst doesn't have.
Yeah, I was just going to say, when I go to Northampton, I park in the garage no matter where I have to be downtown because I know I can find a space. Same thing when I come to the center of town here in Amherst. I mean, if I want to go to Hastings, if I want to go to Formosa, if I want to go to one of my other favorite places, for me, it's a bonus if I find a parking space close. My goal is to get to that particular store or business, and I'm not troubled by the fact that I pay a bit more for parking if I come in the middle of the day. If I want to, get my pastry fix from the Black Sheep or glazed donut, I'm willing to pay the extra 25 cents to do that. So, it's a little bit of a different feel and philosophy. I think people coming into town, that's where we get our discussion about wayfinding this morning, becomes important because, helping people ground themselves, find a place to stop, and then move around is important. So, we can go through anecdotes, anecdotal. Data is not the plural of anecdote. I think we needed to, go back and look at those parking studies and continue to retest and retest, see where we can find proxies, whether that's merchants counting people coming in and out of the businesses, whether it's turnover of spaces, and take a good look at this. So I'm okay where we're at right now. I like the fact that new digital parking is super. I thought we were going to be getting rid of more of the meters on the posts, but I guess those have been reprogrammed. Mm-hmm. I've parked for free at some of those meters because they weren't working. So if they're all working now, that's good. I pointed that out to
Give them all your tickets.
I give it. I'm going to give Joe a ticket.
I went to lunch at Judy's today, hour and a half, plenty of parking, parked right out front, no ticket. But I'll make charitable donation to the town on their behalf. But they should ticket me. I mean, they used to ticket me like that all the time. That's cool. 10 minutes, and I go back to my office, go right online to the thing.
One of the people doing parking enforcement, I parked in the street. I was actually out of Hastings, parked in the street, and the meter is broken. And the parking enforcement person was coming by, and I said to him, by the way, this meter is not working. And he goes, most people wouldn't care. And I said, I'm on the finance committee.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So if the meter is not working, you can park there, but you get a ticket.
Right.
You're not supposed to park there?
That's what I understand. Is that not true?
No,
you run the risk of getting a ticket because if the meter's not working, you put money in it, and it doesn't register, it's expired. So you parked in an expired space, and you could get a ticket. Then you have to argue.
This was like permanently stuck on 5 minutes.
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's.
What did someone say that people have? There's a lot of opinions about parking. I think it's.
No opinions about
something to think about in parking in Amherst is, well, there's actually two things I think about when I think about parking in Amherst. Is one, you can't make it really, really free, because if you do, you'll have the students parking in all the places in downtown and getting on the bus, which they do now, and riding the bus to campus, because that's cheaper than buying a sticker, because I now do it, buying a sticker on campus. My daughter pays a pretty hefty fee to park her car on campus, and she parks her car farther away from her dorm than it is to walk the length of campus, the length of downtown.
Mm-hmm.
So her dorm, she has to park almost at the football field. So that's like walking the length of the downtown from Main Street down to Bartucci's. That's what she has to pay for. So you have to balance Amherst out a little bit, and you can't really compare it to Northampton. I mean, Northampton doesn't have that big a population of students, and Northampton does have student issues in around the campus, and when you start looking, if you drive around Smith, you'll see neighborhood streets that have signs that say no overnight parking. That no overnight parking is to keep all the students who live in those dorms from parking there and taking up all the parking on the street.
You can, is there not time enforcement? I mean, you can enforce that more than 2 hours.
Time enforcement, if you want to do more hours of time enforcement, you're talking people. So you're talking people in the budget, your personnel cost is going to go up because you have to have people doing the enforcement.
To me, it seems like, so are we using the parking transportation fund so there's a surplus here? Is this surplus? Am I reading it right?
Which page are you on?
On page 167. So you have total revenues of 1164370, and then total appropriation is 869121. So is that 295249? Is that surplus?
No,
No.
What is that?
that's indirect costs. That's appropriated in the general fund.
It's
What do you mean by-
Transportation district on the cherry sheet.
Yeah.
PVTA.
Yeah.
That's their assessment.
So we are basically using this money to fund that.
Yeah.
And also
Essentially.
$30,000 goes to the bid. Out of this.
From this?
Mhm.
So the parking is basically paying for other stuff.
Yes, it does pay for other stuff.
So to me, it seems like, okay, I mean, I'll just kind of add my voice to a little bit surprised about that we're discouraging people from coming into downtown, and the cost of that, there's a cost to that, and then we are using that money that we generate from discouraging people from coming into downtown to fund other stuff.
But I wouldn't conclude they're not coming downtown because it costs too much.
No,
I
I'm
think
talking
it
about
might-
costs, discouragement.
So, sorry.
Yeah.
So there's two things with that. One is fund was made for two things. It was made to pay for parking improvements because our parking needed some help. It was second made to pay for transit, which at the time we weren't getting all the transit we liked. We wanted people to be able to ride a bus in the town. So we used the parking revenues from the transportation fund. It's called a transportation fund for a reason, because it's parking and transit. It's not just parking, or else you would just have a parking fund. So if you look on page 193 through page 196, you can see the benefits of using that money to pay for transit. Transit ridership in the town has exploded over the last 4 or 5 years. It has really increased a great deal, and we have one of the best transit systems around. We don't pay as much for the transit system as we used to. We used to pay for 2 routes directly, but now we only pay an assess.
So can you, I'm on 193, do you want to point out some numbers over there, or?
So here you have the ridership. You have the ridership for the different routes on here. So,
Just the total numbers?
yep. So there's actually, so in 15, the ridership was 3.3 million. Next year it was 3.6 million. It dropped a little bit in 17, which may be due to just how the school year changed. And then you can see on the other pages a breakdown by routes and who's coming into town and which routes come through town. So the transportation fund paid for this as well, because the town didn't have money in the general fund budget to help pay for improvements and more transit when they wanted to. And that's one of the reasons this was made. We do pay less now, a lot less.
So 2 questions about that. So how much of that 295,249 is being used for this?
If you look on page 173, that's the breakdown of that 295, 249 is.
Yeah, so we're paying select board town manager from that?
We're paying percentages. This is an enterprise fund, so it's supporting itself. So it pays a percentage of accounting, human resources, construction and maintenance, IT, and police.
And then the PVTA assessments, what we pay now is $139.
Right.
We used to have an additional $100 and some thousand, which was just for what was called the outreach routes. And PVTA, that's actually something John Musani pushed hard for was to get those absorbed back by PVTA. So we used to pay about twice that number of the 139. So that pays for the buses, and then I don't know.
139 is for the buses and stuff?
Yes.
The riders don't really pay anything for riding the buses, do they?
No, and even though if you're not a student, you're supposed to pay to ride the bus, because they have student drivers and they can't bond them, they don't charge for anyone on the UMass system. You only pay if you ride the the PVTA system out of Northampton, or you do the regional route that goes to Holyoke. Those are the only buses you pay for. So you have basically a free system in town for any resident in town to ride the bus.
So any resident can ride the bus?
A UMass transit bus, yes.
As long as you don't hit the.
And is there a reason why the UMass Transit buses are free?
Because they use mostly student drivers and they can't bond their drivers.
They can't,
So they can't-
insure them to handle money to collect a fare. So all the rides that are part of the UMass system, as far out as Deerfield, Sunderland.
And these routes do bring people into town,
Yeah.
into downtown.
They take people from downtown to Stop and Shop, to Big Y, they let them get their groceries and come back to town. All this is part of this whole system.
Getting back to page 194, so all those NAs, are those routes that were discontinued?
Yes, there was a realignment. 194.
194, yeah.
Yes, they recombined some routes. So if you see ridership and then you see ridership stop, that's because they were combined and the ridership shows up on another route.
So why is the operating budget so $669,000? What comprises the operating budget for this?
That is described,
$669,000.
it's described in major components on page 171.
171. Personnel, employee benefits is more than half, 60%.
Yep.
Bike share bid.
Yeah, bike shares.
What is intergovernmental? Another charge to the parking fund?
No, that's the payment to the bid.
The bid is 4%.
No,
intergovernmental.
intergovernmental.
That's the PVTA and
So why do we pay the bid $30,000, and how does that, I mean, it's an assessment, I see, but how does that compare with assessments for other entities that the bid charges or whatever, however they work it?
So the town owns several parcels of land that are inside the borders of the business improvement district. And we are a tax exempt entity. So John Vicente and Paul Backelman has now renewed a memorandum of understanding that says we will not pay the bid assessment as normal property owners inside the borders of the bid do, but we will pay this annual stipend instead. And it's a negotiated amount that began with John Vicente when the bid was first created in 2012 and has continued forward.
There's,
Amherst College and UMass both pay, it's sort of a pilot. So both of them also pay that as well.
and they all pay around the same amount.
Any more questions?
Well, I do have, so $670,000, 60% is personnel cost, which is $400,000. So if we have 2.5 enforcers, why is the personnel cost $400,000?
So if you read this top paragraph, personnel services include funds for 2 full-time officers, 2 part-time officers, a parking clerk, which is a person in my office, a planner, shared with the general fund, 1.5 maintenance workers.
See,
The procurement officer is also partially funded by the general fund, also water and sewer fund.
Is that the
So
new
those are
procurement?
all people whose primary duties relate to maintaining the downtown facility or collecting the parking revenues or writing the parking tickets, or they're all staff people whose primary responsibilities throughout the day relate to downtown facility or parking, and we charge their salaries to this fund.
There's actually a little, on page 166, there's actually a chart of the organization of the department.
No, I see that. To me it seems like, okay, I understand. I understand that to me there is a disconnect here about, it looks like it's a big bureaucracy which is maintaining this parking infrastructure in this town. And it keeps raising the cost for the people who want to come into town and paying higher parking. And kind of parking costs keep on going up. So I think there's a disconnect here.
If you look at Northampton and UMass, they both have the same type of organization.
I know that if they are doing a bad job doesn't mean we have to do a bad job. So I think that doesn't really, it's not really a very good argument that somebody else is doing it.
No, but the reason it was done this way was to kind of not put it all in the general fund. If you do want to change how you do this, say you went to free parking, it all becomes a general fund and becomes taxation. Everyone pays for a part of it. Everyone would pay for a part of the Spring Street lot resurfacing. All the lots we resurface would be paid for by general funds, not by money collected by people who park. Right now, the parking lots, whenever we do a parking lot redo, it comes from the parking funds. Whenever we do meter upgrades, it comes from the parking fund. It doesn't come from the general fund. So it's really a policy and
those are good arguments, I think, but the fact still remains that the parking is expensive in this town and it can discourage people from coming into town.
See, I would challenge that argument. I would say that maybe people don't come and park in town because they can't find a place, not because they have to spend money to
No,
park.
I agree with Anurag.
Okay, I mean.
I think it's a combination of.
And it probably is a combination,
It's
but I
a
wouldn't
combination
make
of a lot
the
of different
conclusion that you have to pay for parking, it's expensive, ergo, it's not a good idea.
But I do think
Oh,
we need
yeah.
to pay for parking, otherwise people from the university will be parking. People who work in town will be parking in all those spaces, and there won't be anything available for anybody else. But I think it needs to be more
The philosophy
reasonable.
of turning the spaces over
Okay, that's
through higher rates, I think is something that
Yeah, okay, cool.
we'll see.
So to me, like it's a system which is self-perpetuating and it's going to get more and more expensive and the rates will keep going up.
And there are other places to go.
I mean, it's that argument, well, there are always intervening opportunities. There's always intervening opportunities.
Yeah.
But if I want to go to a place that's unique to Amherst, I am not deterred by the cost of parking. And if parking was an issue, no one could ever drive into New York City. I mean, you know, so I really think that, I think we have to be sensitive to pricing it because pricing will deter some people. But if you're, you know, if you're gonna, I really, my firm belief in this, and I need to go back and relook at that Nelson Nygaard study because I charged through it and a long time ago. It's not in my head. But I think if we made it easier for people to find the parking spaces, we'd be ahead of the game. and you know, either having walking maps or signage or whatever so that people could make their way around. If someone wants to go and buy clothing at Zana, they're not going to go to, they're going to go to Zana. They're not going to go to Walmart.
Zana has parking behind it.
Well, they have the parking behind it, but they're not going to go to Walmart. You know, that's the point. Unless you're, you know, you're fashion conscious and, well, Wally World does perfectly well for you. I'm not sure.
Anyway, I guess we
I
should,
have one question, but related. The issue of the two buildings that don't have parking. I have a lot of neighbors who don't like that because they think it's taking up all the spaces in town, ergo they don't have a place to park because all these residents are parking in town places. And do we have any data whether that's true or not? We don't yet, I suppose, because One East Pleasant isn't occupied, but is that part of the study?
A lot of the not up there right now is because of the construction staff. I mean, 1 East Pleasant Street is.
But assuming
full
it
of
goes up, so
construction stuff.
that argument of,
We do know the number of permits that we're selling to residents of 57 East Pleasant Street. I didn't bring the number with me, but we do, that is a knowable number.
a number, what's the number?
Permits that we're selling
The
to
$15 permits?
to $25
Or
permits.
$25?
Why not raise those?
But those permits are no good at meters, right? So the kind of parking that your guest is looking for is not the same parking
Yeah.
that we're selling to those residents.
But if you raise those prices, then maybe you don't have to raise the other prices.
Joe first.
So you bring up some really good questions, and Claire sits through these meetings more than I do about these, because I kind of like have walked away, because we actually run a department or a group of, I mean, we run an entity that's been charged to us because the town made a policy decision to do it this way. There is a group, two groups, that these questions are better suited for. The planning board, who actually is pushing development and has development that's building these buildings which have no parking, and the downtown parking committee, or downtown parking task force.
Working group.
Yeah, those are the two groups to really bring these two questions to, because they set the policy and then we actually just carry out the task.
Well, our hope is that we raise the questions here, you will bring those to them.
Well, I stopped going to one of those meetings. I've never been invited to the other one, so.
Well, anyways, maybe they're watching TV and we'll got the
And then it's a
message.
visit.
But they're very good questions.
Well, look, the townspeople interact with the town hall in various different ways. One of the ways they interact with the town hall is when they come into town hall to write the property taxes every quarter. The other way they interact with the town hall is with the potholes that they drive on. The other way they interact with the town is through the parking. So there are touch points for the people. And for the town hall to be providing a service to the citizens who live in this town, those touch points have to be kind of a little bit less harsh, so to speak. So I'm just kind of saying that because it's a point of view. Other people may not share it, but those touch points where the town people interact with the town, those touch points need to be a little bit less harsh. I think by keep on raising these rates and stuff, I think there's a harshness in there.
So I would my response to you is that we don't do that. And so when we bring these things up to us and we bring them up to a committee of other residents in town, those other residents in town turn us off because we're the staff. If you want to talk that and bring those things up to the people who actually make the decision, you have to talk to the committees of other residents like yourself. Because it has become quite evident that the staff is not being listened to in as far as parking goes. Especially that's why I don't go to the meetings anymore. Anything I say is just, I'm a grumpy old white man and I just need to be ignored. So from that standpoint, what you're saying is...
Sorry you feel that way.
Well,
I don't think he feels that way.
You just said
I don't feel that way, but I'm made to... the implication from the people who listen to what I say is that what I say isn't really relevant because of who I am. So as residents of town, I would say if you feel that you need to express concerns about how the parking goes, you need to go to these committees and you need to talk to these committees. No one goes to these committees except people who have their own little personal issues they want to deal with. So if you're not going and saying that you hear from business owners and you too are hearing things and that this is a problem, that's where they need to go, not to a staff members, because when we take it to these committees, they're not listening to us. Because we are just employees of the town.
Well, we probably shouldn't stop on that note, but I think we've exhausted transportation.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
You have 3 hours of your life back.
Okay. I thought this would be the quickest one.
Thank you.
Thank you, Claire.
Thanks, Clark.
So I suggest we continue with the enterprise fund since we're in the enterprise
Yeah, we'll just go
funds.
backwards. We'll do solid waste next.
Solid
Want to do
waste.
solid waste?
Sounds good.
Okay, we'll get through it all.
What page are we on?
It's the gold pages.
Old.
It's the gold ones. It's 150.
152.
152.
Solid waste enterprise.
I know. I was like, why are you
We haven't
doing
closed
that?
it
So
Then we wouldn't be able to read it.
So there really isn't any big changes. The things to think about, and we have increased some revenue items. The cell tower has gone in on the landfill. We do receive revenue from the cell tower. We are pursuing the solar facility on the landfill. Whether that will be some rent payment or some revenue to the transfer station, we don't know. The dog park is being proposed on the old landfill, and a bird sanctuary also is being proposed over there
On the old landfill?
on the old landfill. So those are the,
Incompatible uses.
well, hopefully we get it
Next to a
to,
bird sanctuary.
hopefully they work it out.
Unless they're all Irish setters in the case of pointers.
Hopefully they work it out. The bird sanctuary will be on top of the landfill because the birds like to have a clearer view, clearer sight across the landfill. And then the dog park will be down this little depression, which is where we used to burn stumps. It'll be down there.
Okay. They're being planned, both of those.
Both of those are being planned. So there's some revenue increases, operating costs are going up a little bit. We've adjusted, we constantly adjust what we do here. We went and got a grant for mattress disposal, which pays for mattress disposals for right now. Helps us out. So if you have any questions?
On the cell tower rental, when you talked about that, the jump from the mid-20s to the 40s, that jump is from an additional cell tower? or-
Yes.
Okay.
And the lease on that would increase the rent every time they add other transponders to the tower, or they put
Yes.
another client on the tower, our rent goes up.
Every level that goes on the tower can have different levels, and if you add a carrier at another level, it adds the rent.
And who pays for those cell towers? Is it the telecommunications company, or is it the...
They're both owned by Verizon, and Verizon
Okay.
paid to put them up.
That's pretty cool. Any more going up, or is that...
I think that's it for now.
Any more questions? No? Okay. So we'll do, sewer?
Sewer starts on page 136.
Oh, I'm sorry, what page is it?
136.
Yellow.
The yellow
Yellow.
pages. We're going backwards.
I never got it.
Dark yellow, light yellow?
Well, the other one's goldenrod.
Okay.
So there's really no big changes in here as well. Staffing levels are the same. We did adjust how we pay for one of the electricians. One of the electricians last year we adjusted it last year, and it still carries forward. It used to be the electricians are paid out of the enterprise systems, but they also do general fund work. So now the general fund pays for half of one of the electricians. So that was a reduction in the enterprise systems. I think I probably talked about that last year. Sewer fund is doing well. The biggest challenge we have coming forward is twofold. One is sludge disposal. Sludge disposal is a big issue. There was just an article today that one of the sludge disposers in Connecticut got fined. They did not meet the clean air standards they were supposed to meet, and they just received a huge fine. The second issue we have is our plant is
38
years old. We have some permit requirements that are changing, and we'll have to be doing some major upgrades at the facility. The best story we have is the emergency generator was installed in 1977. If we want to buy parts for that generator, we have to go to a tugboat salvage company and buy engines from a tugboat.
Wow.
That's where it originally came from.
It's basically the same engine as on most of those tugboats. It's a big diesel engine. So the equipment is in very good working shape. We've maintained it very well, but it's just getting old, and we have to make some changes to the processes.
And you are having an increase in rates.
The increase in rate is for the sewer fund. And it's a 10-cent, 15%
15%.
rate, increase rate. And that's more to start planning for the challenges of what's going to happen in the plant with the upgrades at the plant. It has nothing to do with the expansions we've been doing. It has to do with just trying to build the reserves up for when we get ready to do a lot of the upgrades at the plant.
Now, that was a question I had, when the sewer rate gets built, is there an increment in that sewer rate for process improvements and equipment replacement? I mean,
The goal is to build the reserve, so we have like a little
Yeah.
cushion when we get ready to actually start doing it, yes.
But there's no policy that, we're gonna calculate the rate based on actual cost of operation and add 5 or 10%, and that 5 or 10% gets swept into a fund.
Right now, it's just a policy of we want to build the reserve up probably about twice what it is now.
Mhm.
And then as we get closer to actually knowing what we're gonna do and the prices we're talking about, then we'll actually would refine it and do that.
The other question I have is, one of my favorite topics is that NIPD's permit, not the NIPD's permit for operating the plant, but
The
the one for
stormwater.
the stormwater. And what's the prospect of us being mandated to do some treatment on the stormwater, which would mean a different facility?
It would mean possibly different facilities, many facilities. We're hoping that doesn't happen. We don't know how that'll pan out
Yeah,
yet.
because that's all up in the air.
It
Okay.
is. It's I guess the best way to say that is our streams are pretty healthy as far as the loading of nutrients and so forth. We actually have more of an issue with flows than we do with the nutrients, I believe, at this time. So we wouldn't have to do a lot of treatment. If TMDL's total maximum daily loading comes into play, that may be what we actually have to start dealing with more and treating for. And it would be a pretty decentralized treatment system. It wouldn't be a centralized plant like we have now. Because otherwise we'd have to collect the stormwater and pump it to the treatment facility.
Yeah, and we spent years and lots of money, everybody spent years and lots of money getting stormwater out of the treatment facilities. You wouldn't want to.
Well, we'd have to build a totally separate
Separate
treatment
treatment,
facility.
Okay.
So that would be another fee.
We don't know how we're going to do stormwater. Stormwater could be an enterprise system. There is legislation that allows you to create a stormwater utility. We have not decided if we're going to go with the utility or if we're just going to continue to fund all our stormwater work from the general fund. So that's something that has to be decided.
As an example, Northampton Institute
Yeah,
stormwater
I
fees.
saw that.
And they're having a major battle over that, but that's what this relates to, is
Yeah.
cleaning up the stormwater.
Yeah, that was one of my questions too, the stormwater issue. Anything else on sewer? Oh, what about, will you have money, collected, in the reserves to set aside for, sewering the rest of the town when it needs it? It says no.
We don't have much left. So the areas we have left are Bay Road, the Bay Road, Elfville area, the High Point area. The High Point area will be very difficult to sewer. It actually is mostly a lot of ledge up there, so that'd be a little more costly. Plus, it's decentralized from the sewer system as it is now, so there's a long transmission line that you would need to build to get that neighborhood in. There's a few smaller sections of town that aren't sewered, and it would just be a cost-benefit analysis if we actually want to sewer it. There's probably one area, probably on Southeast Street, that probably should be sewered, and it'll probably get taken care of. As long as the new co-finance director has her way, we'll get taken care of. But it's not that much left.
But it might need to be done at some point if systems start failing. I guess it seems like every time houses are going up for sale, they need to have a new leach field put in.
Yes, and that is a policy decision too, because there's only the High Point area is probably the one place that has bad soils, and would be the primary candidate for going ahead and going and sewering that, because there's a lot of rock, so there's very little soil to let the water leach into. So it actually is more of a chance of contaminating the ground and the groundwater. All those people,
Which is right next to our surface water.
yes, but all those people are also on wells, so that would be a high health issue for that neighborhood. When you get over on Bay Road and Elf Hill, there's a lot of gravel and sand in there, good soils for percolating, good soils for septic systems. That we have put sewers in places like that in town before, and the sewer system has paid for it, but that is a sort of a policy decision that would continue to need to be discussed as whether we want to do sewers in those type of areas or whether we want to keep recharging the aquifer, so to say.
Yeah,
And this is the point in the discussion where each year I say that horrible word, betterment. Charging betterments if we have to sort an area.
yeah, but if the sewer fund has paid for the rest of the
Yeah,
town
too
to be
bad.
sewered, it's not
charge-
fair.
You charge betterments, and if people haven't been charged betterments in the past, there's no reason to repeat that mistake.
It's not fair to the others.
Again, that's a policy decision.
Tight decision. Tight
Policy,
tight tanks are always an option.
Okay. Anything else on sewers?
Where's the plant?
The plant's at one Mullins Way. It's right outside UMass Intramural Fields in Hadley.
Yeah, like behind the Mullen Center.
Oh, yeah.
There, that brick building back
Yeah.
I
there.
thought that was like UMass's facility.
That's
Most
ours.
of
Oh, is it? Oh,
Yes.
wow, cool.
Yeah.
We pay taxes to Hadley.
It's
Like,
technically across the Hadley line.
Right, yeah.
Okay, anything else, or can we move on to water? So water is blue.
Yes, page 122. Not many changes here as well. Most of the changes are salary in this one. The only issues we have going on is we did our study, our system-wide resiliency study, and we presented that to the select board. There were several recommendations that came forward. The primary recommendation was to take the well 4 and the baby carriage treatment plant and to make it more resilient and to automate it right now.
Well, for
Well 4 and baby carriage treatment plant. Make it more resilient and to automate it. We've been working on that. We actually have funds for that already set aside. We've been working on it. The generator is in it. Well, we purchased a generator for baby carriage, the treatment plant. We have to purchase a generator for well 4. And then we've taken well 4 and made it a VFD versus a direct drive motor so you can control it better. So all we have left there is to actually program the controls so they can be operated automatically or manually, and to put some communications in so we can talk to the well from the treatment plant and our place. The other issue that came up was to spend some time on Centennial and decide what we're going to do with Centennial and bring it back up to speed and get it working 100%. And then there was a proposal that we look for a well site in the north end of town, the north end of Amherst or the south end of Sunderland.
Because we're running out of water?
No, it's just a backup and to break up the. Right now, we take water from the Atkins Reservoir and the Pelham Reservoir system, which are basically in the same drainage system, and we take water from the Atkins
Lawrence
Swamp aquifer. So we're taking them out of only 2 bowls. So if you go to the north end of town, you'd be taking it out of a 3rd bowl. So you would just have a little more ability to balance out what you're taking, so you're not taking it all from one or the other. During the summer, we take less from the surface waters because they dry up, they start getting shallow, and it's almost all from the groundwater. And in the winter, it's almost all from the surface waters, and we take less from the ground. So if you had a 3rd bowl, we call them scorpion bowls. We like to think of it that
It's
way.
just like that, with a bunch of straws
Nice.
in it. Yeah.
So we have a 3rd scorpion bowl. We're not really going to run out.
Okay, any questions?
Quick question. Have you considered tiered rates as a way of encouraging conservation?
Yes, we have submitted for our renewal of our water permit, and we expect that we'll be told we have to do tiered rates, and we will be proposing some tiered rates.
And would there be a likelihood of expansion of outside meters?
We're hoping not to expand outside meters. We would prefer not to have irrigation meters and so forth. We will have irrigation meters for agricultural use, but we're really not that interested in doing that for houses.
Okay. Just relating back to my Hadley experience. Thanks.
Anything else on water? Okay, then we'll go to the Public Works Department.
Which we're off to page 66. It's I'm gonna say my statement again, not much changes here. The biggest thing is just personnel, the cost of personnel, and that's our biggest thing. So overall, it's a 1.2% increase in the budget. We're still doing the same things we've always done. We haven't changed very much. Our biggest focus on the highway side is gonna be more roadside maintenance is what we've been trying to do more of, cutting brush, clearing sidewalks, clearing the roadways, letting people walk, have more to walk in. Not much. We are starting to get, we are doing 100% salt for snow and ice treatment.
What does that mean, 100% salt?
When we treat the roads, it's only salt. It's salt and a chemical that's sprayed on the salt, so there's no sand being used for snow and ice control anymore. It's all salt. It costs a little more, but technically we use less of it, so we're spending less money. We are starting to. We've always been concerned, as other communities have been, if you're using a lot of salt, that you might be contaminating the environment around us a little more. So we do watch that a lot and getting a little concerned about that.
So I'm sorry, can I just clarify? So you're using a lot of pure salt, and then you're concerned about drainage into the water and stuff like that.
Yeah, and infiltrating into the ground.
Infiltrating into that. So I'm not sure I understand. So what are you doing about that?
So we've been watching it. We actually have part of our
Well monitoring.
well
program.
monitoring and water
Well
quality.
monitoring
We watch the sodium chloride levels. It's not really gone up that much, but Hadley's using a lot of salt. The state's using a lot of salt. We're using a lot of salt.
And the reason for using salt is it's just more efficient to do that way, or?
It's more efficient and it cleans the road faster, which allows people to, well, if you really want to, if it's a snow day, you can go to the 99 restaurant in the Holyoke Mall and your kids can eat for free. Did you know that?
Didn't know that. Well, our kids are grown.
But salt basically, it will melt the snow
Much faster.
much faster. Where sand doesn't really melt the snow, it just provides traction, but it's not actually treating what's there. And so the salt actually treats it. And so, what we were doing before with a sand salt mixture, it just wasn't treating it as much because we were putting some sand and some salt, and now it's 100% salt. So it's going to treat it better.
And in terms of cost, it's about the same.
It's actually a little less.
It costs more to get the salt, but then you have to use less product. Because you only have to treat once, as opposed to with the sand, you'd have to treat it a couple of times because it doesn't continue to work and melt it.
Yeah.
So your savings is in personnel costs because you're not treating constantly.
And you're probably saving in cleanup costs in the spring as well, and not having the special waste material to deal with, because I'm sure you just can't take the sand that you take off the roads and put it anywhere.
No, we actually, it does save on the cost of cleaning up. We can clean up faster. It doesn't really affect us that much on disposal. We had come up with a way to dispose of it that was actually pretty inexpensive. It was actually free.
Do you still keep sand at the Public Works Department?
We do. We have to use sand on the dirt roads because if you use 100% salt on the dirt roads, we would turn the dirt roads into mud pits.
Yeah.
So there is that pile that people could bring and fill up to 2 buckets worth and use on their driveway, and it's a sand salt mixture there.
So would you recommend to people who are watching and the townspeople to get their car undercarriage cleaned more often for rusting?
I don't know. I wash my car a lot. My truck's just rusting out on me, so I don't know what. It might be the age of the vehicle too, but it's very important to keep your car clean. It's very important to be careful in how you actually apply the material, even on your home. If you're putting it on your driveway or your walkway, don't put so much down. It's we're cutting back to try to not be such a big impact on the environment.
But you do pre-treat the roads, I noticed.
The pre-treating works a lot better and helps break the bond between the material what falls in the road. So we do that.
Anything?
Without getting into the details, because this will come
Did
when
you
the-
accidentally summon me?
when the new,
Wow, that was so polite.
Someone.
Siri, give me a copy.
can I ask my question now? Without getting into all the details, this will come when the project comes up for the new building. Where would we see any savings that you might be projecting in the new building, in this budget? Would there be personnel as well as maintenance savings, things like that?
No, mostly you're gonna see the savings in operating costs.
Oh, that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, it's just gonna be operating costs.
Operating,
It's not gonna
not
be
people,
personnel.
as opposed to, okay.
No, actually, the net.
Well, I was gonna say the energy cost goes to zero, right?
Oh, that's right. You did net
No.
zero.
Because you guys did the net zero energy.
Actually, you may see the personnel costs go up. As you talk about net zero energy buildings, there's a lot of technology in those buildings, and the technology has to be maintained. So it would either be contracted out to someone to come in and maintain it, or we would hire someone and put them on staff to maintain it. So that cost that cost isn't in the numbers that the net energy zero people talk about. So there will be some cost to maintain it. You make a sophisticated building, you don't take your Ferrari to
The mobile station.
Jiffy Lube.
you don't take it to Click and Clack, you take it to the Ferrari dealer.
Okay, well. You noted here that the department's working on 17 major projects. They're not all, I'd ask you to just to mention some of them, because when people think of the DPW, they immediately think of snow and ice removal, and the DPW does a heck of a lot more.
So the main projects we're working on, we have the sewer expansion in Amherst Woods. We're finishing up phase 2, there's a phase 3, and there might be a phase 4 because we may break it down even more. So that project's going on. We have some water main installations that are going on around town. We're going to be on, I can't think of the name of the road. We have water main we're replacing on a small road off of Harvard. We have a couple other water mains we're doing. We have some water main valves we're replacing. These are not little valves. These are big 12-inch valves we're replacing on Route 9 to get ready for the Route 9 widening project and improvement project what the state's doing. We're going to replace the water main on Route 9 between South Pleasant and just almost to University Drive. We have some air relief valves on our major force main from the South Amherst we're going to be replacing. There are 2 relief valves, but the force main is such that the force main doesn't shut down. So you have to pump it into a holding tank. You have to really figure out how you're going to do this so you don't send sewerage everywhere. That's our big
You have to
big thought.
engineer it.
You have to plan this out. You have to really plan that one out. We have our paving projects as normal, so we'll be paving probably about 2 miles of road this year. That's going to be repaved. Possibly may go up to 4 miles depending on what we get for capital funding. We have some crack sealing we're doing. We have a contractor coming in to crack seal. We also have, we're going to be working on the crosswalks downtown. So we're working on that, trying to line that one up. A lot of the crosswalks you see will go away and something else will go down. Totally different type of material, totally different look. Well, not look, totally different material. We just keep going and going.
So these are all routine upkeep and maintenance and upgrades going on right now.
Some of it's routine, some of it's the crosswalks. It's not really routine. It's just a.
So why are you changing the crosswalks? Is there something wrong with the crosswalks right now?
Well, most of the stone, the concrete, granite, bricks crosswalks are falling apart. And
A
the roads
good example is down by Amherst College, where like several of the bricks have come off, and so we now have, we've had to like do patch repair in the crosswalk.
The Black Sheep Deli.
Yeah,
If you're over talking to Mr. Seaman about parking issues, the crosswalk in front of his establishment is one which is falling apart and will be taken out. That's what we'll be working on.
So I guess you'll put something better.
Yes.
Yes.
Something else will go in, and there will
Stay.
remain a crosswalk there. It's just going to be a different format and not with as much material in there that could potentially heave over the years or shift or.
Is Mr. Seaman a good person to talk about parking?
Oh yes, I thought for sure you must be talking to him.
I wouldn't say anything. But
Well, we shouldn't get into persons.
Oh, sorry. Black Sheep Deli is crosswalk's going to go away. It'll be replaced. The crosswalk. So we have the crosswalk project going on. We have a couple other little projects going on as well.
Can't Ave.
That's the water line. Canton Ave will get a new water line. They have a 2-inch water line now. They'll get a new one.
So I see on page 70, under capital appropriations, I know the capital will come back to us, but there is $2,860,000. I assume that has to do with the building under Public Works Administration.
No, that's actually equipment. A big part of that $2 million is the Mill Street Bridge. That's a grant. That's kind of a grant from the state to replace the Mill Street Bridge. That's actually I looked at that sheet. It's $2 million for that bridge, and then the rest of that money is actually equipment, mostly equipment. And I think that's what that money is.
Okay, anything more on Public Works Administration? Okay, we move on to the rest. Highway? Or,
Just ask questions. There's really
okay, nothing, we don't
Nothing's
need to
really-
go
Something
yeah.
to point out per se.
Okay, so what's the, for the highway capital appropriation, you have
Yeah.
3 million or something, 3,341,000, so what is that for?
So some of these appropriations actually include bond payments that are in the overall capital plan. So you actually have to look at the whole capital plan. So part of that payment, part of that $3 million is payments for when we borrowed money for resurfacing many years ago. We did it actually twice. So that's why the number's so high. So in admin, that $2 million is mostly the bridge work. And then we have a dump truck and another truck in this for highway. It's spelled out in more detail in the capital plan.
Well,
At
we'll
one
get to it, I'm sure.
At one point, there was some talk about there was 18 million backlog on the roads.
Yes.
Where are we with that now?
It's about 16 million. So there's actually going to be a presentation on February 22nd to the select board. We had the company from Northwestern University.
Paving.
Northeastern?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's the university in Boston?
That's
Northwestern?
Northeastern.
Northeastern. You northern people, it's all north something.
That's where I went to school.
Boston's east.
Okay. Oh, northeast.
Yeah,
Oh. So there's a company.
down that direction.
There's a company called Paving that came out of Northeastern University, and they scan the roads with LiDAR, and they do some picture stuff, and they rate the roads. We had them come in, and they did an update, and we'll be giving that update on the 22nd to the select board. It's about 16, I think, is what the number was. I don't really remember.
And that becomes the basis for a revised pavement management plan.
It does. There's a new 5-year plan out of it, and what we're going to do.
Okay, Aaron?
So the way you do budgeting in a department, is there is there a separate line item for sidewalks, or is it all blended into everything else? So I'm just kind of curious about what your philosophy and allocations are for sidewalk repair, because people walking and twisting their ankles and stuff.
It's two ways. So if there's a small repair, that can be handled in the operating budget, which is what you're looking at in this book right now. And if there's something we want to do, it's a bigger repair, it's a capital request, and we get capital money, and then we take the capital money and kind of program out what we're doing. So in the last year, we got $80,000 for sidewalk repair. This year we're asking for $30,000, and that's what we use for small repairs. bigger projects come out of the Chapter 90 fund or for the road repaving fund, which is also in the capital request.
I noticed under highway, there's traffic line painting,
Yes,
purchase of services, $20,000. I'm never sure if that's something contracted out or you do that in-house.
we do that in-house. That shouldn't purchase of services. That's
Not
a
sure.
note from a long time ago.
Yeah.
It should have been,
'Cause we do have a
We do our
roadway
own.
painting machine and a couple of staff members that's part of their job is to do the road painting. They also do all the signs and then they handle the parking meters. It's their,
Okay.
the maintenance on the parking meters.
It's a very important function, I
The-
agree.
the line item is $20,000. That's just to buy paint.
Paint,
Yes.
just for paint?
When we actually contracted it out, the number was around $40,000.
Okay.
Are you guys still using that stuff that you talked about last year, to pave the roads? It was like a
We mixed the
Mixed,
mill-
yeah.
Yes.
Can you has that been working still pretty good?
It still works, but the machine's getting old.
Oh.
We've had it for 8 years, and
Okay.
it's basically a small little asphalt plant on wheels.
No.
This year it's
Yeah,
It's
it's,
like-
it's pretty finicky. It's one of those things where one person on the crew, it's his baby because he knows exactly
He knows
how
how
to
exactly,
finesse
yeah,
it
finesse it, right,
to
yeah.
make it work well, and so it's it's just a kind of a
Yeah.
over time it's gotten very finicky.
as it
Obviously,
gets
it does a
older-
hard job.
It's like a lot of things
You
at
know.
DPW.
Yeah,
well,
it does a hard, dirty job, and so things get gunked up. and you
Right,
have to
yeah.
really-
as it gets older, it gets more finicky. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
just like us, the rest of human
Just
beings.
like us. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, on page 76, under street and traffic lights, under recent accomplishments, you talk about, about 2/3 of the way down in the accomplishment section. Talk about Groff Park Pool. Is that the waiting pool that's not there any longer?
Yes.
Okay.
So these are some of the things the electricians, so it's called street and traffic lights, but that's really the electrical division in our department. There's 2 people in that division, and these are the things they do. Before the pool could be open last time, we actually had to install these things. So
There's an
that's-
emergency button so the lifeguard could stop chlorination at any time without having to go into the pumps and everything. So that's a regulation. So
Well,
they had to. There's an emergency button like right on the side of the
the
pool.
chlorination would stop itself, and that's why the pool's no longer there.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry.
That's what that does.
Yeah, but that's what they did.
Okay, but that pool is gone.
The pool
Yes.
is gone.
Okay.
But
I know last year we talked about the street lights, and you were replacing them with a more efficient. I think you did one in front of Jones Library, or
yes, the downtown street lights are being replaced.
and is that process is still happening?
Yes, we replaced the Jones Library. There's
Yeah.
2 there, and then everything we did on the East Pleasant Street upgrades, where we
Yeah.
took out the overhead wires,
Okay.
those are all the same new lights.
Okay, and is that kind of going to continue, or is it that's stored?
That's going to probably continue.
Okay.
People like it. The light's higher.
It
It
doesn't
casts
shine in
down.
as nice.
It's
Okay.
not a ball of light right in your eyes.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So people do like it.
Awesome. Nice.
We might need to go a little higher though.
Any other questions?
Can I ask you a sort of a personal question, but that may be relevant for other people too? So I have a street light right outside on my driveway, like pretty bright. Is there anything to be done about that? It's actually
Has it been bright for a long time or just recently got bright?
I can't tell you that because I don't have that kind of memory.
So so just call the office and tell, if you have a street light and it's getting bright, call the office and just let us know you have your light's getting brighter. It's a little weird. So what happens is sometimes they loosen up over time because the light's on an arm and the wind's blowing. It may
It's
loosen.
very windy out there, yeah.
And as it loosens, it may tilt, and it may tilt back towards your house, or it may tilt away from you into your neighbor across the street, or it may tilt left or right. And that's just a matter of going in and tightening and re-leveling the light. So that's normally what
So I call or is there a form I fill?
You
You
can
can
just
do
call-
a C-click fix as well.
Sorry?
C-click fix is our
Oh, the website.
Online.
on the website.
You go online.
You can go online or you can call in to
Oh, which is better. I mean, I don't mind doing it as long as I.
Either one.
Well, the other works too, I've done that.
It does, but
There you
C-Click Fix is gonna. We did get money for the new Dude Solutions work order system. We got Paving on, and we got Dude Solutions. We're just really
It's super over there.
more chill.
So is there are there different kinds of street lights that you're using now, or are they all about the same?
Most of the Cobra lights, the ones that are high and they stick out on an arm, they're the same fixture. We just use the same fixture. We have the same fixture that's on the, if you live in a neighborhood and you have like a carriage style light, that's the same fixture. We can adjust them. We can put shields inside the carriage lights, and we can do some things like that. And then downtown we now have two styles of lights. We have the acorn style light, and then we have the upside down acorn with a shield on it.
Yeah, so near the roundabout,
Right.
I've seen some different kinds of fixtures.
So those are the four we use right now.
Okay.
They're all LEDs. We don't use anything but LED lights now.
Because of efficiency?
The efficiency and the cost is just, the electricity use is just it's really way low.
Thank you.
And anything else? No? Well, thank you.
Thank you.
You want to talk about anything? No equipment maintenance or?
Tree and ground.
Tree and
Well,
ground.
I think we're sort of doing everything.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
We just,
I mean,
Cool.
are there any other questions for you? Well, we know where to find you if we have any more questions.
Yes. Unfortunately, we didn't get any big money. I mean, next time if we get more, bigger increase in our budget, we'll have more to talk about.
We did want to, because you actually triggered a memory there about because we talked last year about the C-Click Fix, the customer work order system. Is the Dude system now in place, or is that?
it's not yet, it's in the process, but it's just
Okay.
taken a little longer to set up.
Well, I was going to say, it seems to be rolling out
Yeah.
slowly.
Yes.
The Dude system, you said?
Yes.
Yeah.
Called
Dude
Dude
Solutions
Dude
is
Solutions.
the name.
And it's a work order system. It actually allows us to do, the C-Click Fix is really just an interface for you as the resident to communicate to us something's wrong. And Dude Solutions is more of a product that we can take it and do some more analysis and actually scheduling. There's no scheduling and no analysis in C-Click Fix except for the analysis of how fast we fixed it. So the Dude Solutions is much better for us as managers.
Oh, by the way, I want to thank you personally because last time when we were here last year, you talked about the tree thing. So my wife called and they put a tree in front of our yard. So that was
Fantastic.
awesome.
We have a lot more trees. People
Anybody
want
else
more
want a
trees.
tree?
If people listening want a tree, call up.
We have trees that we're planting in front of other trees.
We have lots more trees.
Yeah, so and they were really good. They came back and kind of took care of it too after a while. I was very impressed. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right.
So, Ralph, you don't have anything more to tell us, I guess.
No.
We're done.
Well, I'll just parting words is we are spending a lot of money this winter season. We haven't had many big storms. We're having lots of small storms. The small storms cost probably more per inch than any of the big storms do. So when we get to the end of the budget year, we may be over budget because these little storms just eat up a lot of money.
You think it's worse than it was last year? Because I know last year we had the same problem. Same
Yes,
issue.
we're
You
having.
think it's worse this year or
It's
not as bad?
worse this year. We were in this morning. We'll probably be in
Yeah, right.
tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
I mean, all we got was a quarter inch. People were sliding. We had to come in and treat. Then it was 38 degrees in the afternoon.
Yeah.
But we have to treat during the event, even though it's going to warm up. We tone it down a bit, knowing it's going to warm up, but still that has to be done. Something has to be done.
Yeah, right.
It does sound true. A little flashing alert on my phone that you guys are going to be busy tomorrow morning at drive times.
Yes, we'll be out. They're coming in at 3 o'clock. So you have 6 guys coming in at 3 o'clock. They'll get 4 hours of overtime, and they'll treat the roads, and then So just so you know, we probably will go into deficit on the snow and ice budget.
But that's allowed.
It is allowed, but it has to be made up somewhere, and I understand it's a tight year. Just so you know.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
That's nice.
any news affecting the budget?
No news from last week.
Committee and liaison reports. I know there was a JCPC meeting this morning.
That's right, and we heard from Guilford. So, you know, he's got some projections in here for capital. Let's, it's wishful thinking. Because we haven't made any recommendations on his budget yet. We also heard
For
from,
JCPC?
yeah, from JCPC, also heard from LSSE. They came in with some, the 3 requests, pretty modest for what they're looking for to do, including a strategic planning process for the department, which I think is well overdue. And sort of created by accident, and they need to take a good hard look at what they do and how they organize themselves and what they charge, and so that they're asking for funds to do that. They're asking for a comfort station at the soccer fields off Poway Lane, and one other item which just escapes me at the moment. Guilford's request is a little more complicated because he also includes, as he does in his budget, things we'll pay for out of Chapter 90 money, as well as grants and the like. So it'll take us a little bit of time to work through this stuff.
Can I just make a comment? In the budget book where you're looking at capital, and I think I sent that out in a memo to everybody, but this is just supplemental information. And the capital numbers that are in here in 19 are what were in the 19 column of the completed fiscal year 18 capital. You know, 18 capital has years out into the future. So it's not really the numbers that are here for 19 because things change, like Bernie was saying. They haven't decided what they're going to cover for capital yet. So it's just what's in that column that was projected last year for 19.
Okay, but there's
So
sort
they're
of
not real numbers.
Yeah, it's like a placeholder right now.
Right, so,
Yeah, and the capital plan that we're working on now will cover a 10-year period instead of a 5-year period. So we'll
Right.
be moving still further out into the future.
right, and things change, plans change.
Yeah,
Priorities change.
but he does have, he is getting, or the town is getting Chapter 90 money. We're hoping that it'll be the same amount as last year, the $841,000. That money, Chapter 90 is a very funny statute. It's very prescriptive about what you can spend your money on. There's a whole list of things. So, for example, he mentioned purchasing a heavy truck. He can buy the truck body with Chapter 90 money, but he can't buy the dump body or the sander body. He has to, you don't even understand, that has to come out of taxation.
Wow.
So it's one of those odd things. You can't buy a 3/4 ton pickup truck with Chapter 90 money, and things like that. But you can buy certain equipment, and you can use it for certain projects. And for sidewalks, for example, if you're doing a street with Chapter 90 money, you can include the sidewalks as part of that. But repairing individual sidewalks requires an allocation from taxation. Chapter 90 money isn't fit for that. It's and people are used to, he's used to dealing with it, but it is a kind of an odd statute.
Are there any other liaison reports?
There was a DPW fire committee, and I could not go because I had class on Wednesday night, and the fire committee usually is not on a Wednesday night, the meetings, so, but this time they had to move it to that. But there is another one in 2 weeks, and I will be attending that, so I'll have a fresh update for you. And we probably heard a little from him tonight, so.
Is there a guesstimate in terms of when those projects might begin?
No, not yet.
You're not even that far.
Yeah, they're not, they're like just screaming to like try to get ideas of when they should even present this to a town meeting.
But they don't have any sites yet.
That's the big problem,
Well, you can't move to the schematic design
yeah.
piece without having the site
Yeah, we're
selected.
still fighting over this, trying to figure that out. It's like,
Yeah,
you can't really move, it's like spinning the wheels. You know?
Yeah.
Well, you get certain generic parts to the building that they can design, because it'll look like that no matter where it is, but
Yeah.
where you're putting it
Yeah.
is going to have an impact on the design. It's also going to have an impact on how the building's used and the energy usage of the building as a whole.
Well, from
Yeah,
the
exactly, and these have to be net zero. right?
finance committee point of view, is, all of these things are going to be a lot more expensive now.
They are.
Well,
You know, both for the financing
Financing
cost
cost,
and the
yeah.
actual escalation of costs.
Well, the fabulous tax bill, which is
Yeah, 1.5 trillion.
1.5.
Would that go towards a building, would that support like a
It's
facility?
gonna make it'll make life more difficult for municipalities because muni bonds will become less attractive
Mhm.
as a tax dodge.
Mhm.
So, we can expect that rates on the muni bonds are gonna go up because of the.
Oh, you're talking about just like the tax
In
bill.
terms
What
of
about like
finance.
he's proposing this 1.5 trillion infrastructure?
There's no proposal, it's a thought. I mean,
That's
there's nothing substantial. And besides, 90% of the infrastructure that you're talking about belongs to the states to begin with. So it sounds like, how can we convince the states to spend more money on this stuff that we don't have the money to spend on it now because we gave it all away.
Right.
So, went to Black Sheep and got a coffee and this morning, spent my tax refund.
Good for you. Probably burn.
Putting it to work, putting it back in the economy.
Totally. That's what it's all about. Leverage that out.
Okay, so, we have, I guess, one set of minutes from last Saturday. And just
From
wanna-
last Saturday?
Yeah.
What was the ones you
It
wrote
was
up?
January 27th.
The ones that you wrote up?
Yeah, those are.
Yes.
Yeah, I've not had a chance to look at those, but I did see them they came across.
Oh, okay. Well, do you want to wait to?
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to look at them either.
They're very short and sweet.
I'm sure they're awesome.
I'm sure.
I thought.
Wonderful thing from you.
Well, because it wasn't a real
Yeah.
finance committee meeting, we were just all there,
Yeah.
so it had to be a called meeting. So the minutes are a little shorter and a little less involved because the school department will produce more in-depth minutes about the meeting. It's their meeting. So that was the theory behind the minutes. So anyway, we'll do it next time. And I think that's all that we had available in minutes for,
Yeah, I haven't done mine.
yeah.
No, I have
And
two
Bernie,
sets.
do you have a set?
I've got a page of chicken scratch minutes that I've got
Oh, okay,
and I'll do that for next week.
Let's see. Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, minutes are very important, but they're even more important to be timely when we have to write up presentations or reports or,
Yeah.
take votes, so that we know it's helpful to have all that information.
Those are the ones that I have are from our, the short meeting we had after the budget presentation. So that'll be very short,
Yeah,
and no votes were taken. So.
yeah, and that's kind of the same situation
Right.
as the last meeting. So, okay, just a couple things. Sonia sent an email about February 22nd. We don't have a meeting scheduled that evening, and she scheduled a vacation. So, I don't think, well, so far, it doesn't look like we'll have to schedule a meeting that night, but, is that okay with you all if we don't meet on February 22nd?
Oh, how can
I know you want to be here.
You can meet,
you meet at high horse? Yeah.
So I think, okay, so that's taken care of, let's see, we did that. I think, anything else we need to talk about? Otherwise, I think we're done.
No, I move we adjourn.
Second?
I second that.
Okay, we're done.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect.